everyone, this is Julie Murphy, and today I'm going to be working in the embroidery section of our machines. And what I would like to do is I'm going to take a shape and I'm going to make a word collage, and we're going to do it all on the machine. Obviously we have other options available to us, but for this particular video I wanted us to see what the capabilities are of our machines. I'm going to choose number 4 and go into the hearts, and I'm going to choose number 11 and hit set. We now have the heart on our screen, and the first thing I would like to do, now I work in inches and I know a lot of you work in centimeters, but since I'm working on a towel and I'm familiar with inches, I'm going to actually increase this to about a 4.85. The first thing I want to do to increase it is go into edit, and we have our size button here. Now if you don't have a size button, somehow you might have touched the screen and this little red box, let me zoom in so you can see. Can you see the red box around our heart? That little red box is showing us that we have it selected, and so we can use the size button. And if you'll see the measurements up here, I'm going to actually just increase it. This is to decrease and this is to increase. And that's about where I want to have the height. What I want to do is make it narrower. So now to make it narrower, we can either go narrower or we can make it wider. And for this, I'm going to make it narrower. And there we go. We have it at 487 by 4.85. So if we're happy with that, we'll say OK. And the next thing I want to do is change the density of my stitches. We have a kind of a roping effect of the heart. And because I'm putting this on a towel, I would like for the stitches to be a little more dense than, say, if I was just putting it on a piece of fabric. So we have this density button right here, and currently it's at 100%, and I want to increase it to 105. We could go to 110, but for this particular design, I think I'm going to leave it at 105. So I'll say OK. The next thing I'd like to do is change the color of the heart, and that's this button right here. It looks like a color palette with a spool of thread, so we'll touch that and our palette comes up. And for this design, I think I'm going to actually change it to a really deep plum color. Remember, the colors that we choose don't actually impact what we're going to stitch it in. We make those design choices before we start stitching. And sometimes we make them after we've started stitching. So we'll say OK. And now the design is back on our screen. The next thing I would like to do before I send it to embroidery is add some words. So let me zoom back out. Okay. So we will press add, and we'll go into number 2. And I'm going to choose number 10. And we have our uppercase, but for this word I would like to choose lowercase. Before we can make it large, medium, or small, we first have to choose a letter. So since we're spelling chocolate, and then I can make it medium or small. And here's the word spelled out up here. And trust me, you definitely want to check your spelling before you get too far along. So if you're happy with it, you can say set. Now one thing you can do at this point, because we're getting ready to put it on, place it on an array, is you can touch the button right here that says array, and it brings up all of our options, whether we want to make it curve down or up, or really make it go around, or even on an angle. But let me show you what we can do on our screen. So we're going to hit set, and here is our word chocolate. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to press edit. I have both upgrades on my machine, and one of the buttons that has been added is this down arrow. And before the upgrade, the array button was on our prior screen. But now I'm going to press array, and I'm going to choose it so it curves up because I want it to, I'm going to move the word chocolate so it kind of follows along on this curve of the heart. And there it is. Now I want to open it up just a bit. And that's, did you hear that sound? That's as far as I can open the array. So we'll say okay. And the next thing I would like to do is, now here we are still in the edit screen, and we have a couple of options here. Now remember, we chose number 10, but if we are looking at this and we decide we want to change the actual type, we can press this font button right here, and we can actually see how the numbers align with what is in our lettering screen. We can choose to change our letters according to whichever one that we want to change it to. We can also go down here, and remember I was working with number 10, and there it is back the way that I had it originally. So we'll say okay. And we also have this letter edit button. And what's interesting about the letter edit button is we can make it large, we can make it medium, and we can make it small. And so we can do this individually as we go along, and we can now make them wider or smaller. So for this particular thing, I'm going to go back out and show you. We're going to touch this arrow, and we're going to go to spacing. And in spacing, what we have the option of is sending our letters, all the letters that have the red box around them, either further apart or closer together. I'm pretty happy with that. I think now I'm going to say okay, and I would like it to go along this curve here, so I'm going to choose the rotate. I'm going to rotate it in 10-degree increments. And then I'm going to drag it over. And once it's here, I think I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So here's our word, and you can see it's a little further away than it is up here. So at this point, I'm going to do it in 1-degree increments. And then I'm going to move this arrow here to move it closer to the edge of the heart. And I'm actually pretty happy with that, so I'm going to say okay. And now I want to change the color of the word chocolate. So I'm going to go back into the little spool and color area. And for this particular word, I think I'm going to assign it a dark pink. So we'll say okay. Now I would like to add a word along this way that says sweetheart. So we're going to go right back through the same process. So I'm going to go into number 2, number 10, lowercase, first letter, and this is where you need to remember to make it either large, medium, or small. And there we have our first 2 words. The next thing I would like to do is start filling in the space here with other words. I'm going to fill in a word up here that is love. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to say add And I'm going to go into number 2, and this time I'm going to actually choose number 2. And let's see here. Because I want to stack the letters on top of each other, I'm actually going to do L-O, and I could hit it and return here and put the VE underneath it, but I'm going to show you something else. I will say set. Now obviously I've left them as really large letters, so remember we can go into edit, and we can go into letter edit, and remember we have our large, medium, and small. So if you accidentally send it to your screen, there it adjusted the L, and now I want to adjust, and now I adjusted the O. So we will drag it up here to the top, and we'll say OK. And now we're going to go back in and add the VE underneath it. We'll go into edit and letter edit. Before I do too much, I'm going to zoom in. Okay. And I would like to work on the spacing of these. Do you see we have this button down here called multicolor? Do you see that button right here? And our red box is around the V and E, so I'm going to touch multicolor. And watch what happens when we go in to adjust it. Now we have just the V, and what it has done is it is separated out. If you'll see, the blue box is around this black thread, the blue box around the E. So let's change the V to the pink color, and I think I will change, now I'm going to touch this thread here, and you can see it's the letter E. We're going to change that to the plum color. Now I'm going to go up. You'll notice that here is only one spool of black thread, and that's the LO. So let's go back into, you see the red box around the LO? We're going to touch multicolor, and then we'll choose our thread, and there is the L. And for the L, I would like it to be the opposite of what this pink is, so I'll make it plum. And then I will see how the plum is here. I will go down to the O, and I'll make that pink. We'll say OK. So the next thing I would like to do is move this VE up so it's closer to the LO. So what we're going to do is we'll touch the VE, and you'll see we have our red box around it now, and we will press the move button, and we will just, I'm using the movement keys here, and I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll say OK, and now we're ready to go to our next word. I think the next word I would like to do is the word Valentine, and I'm going to put it on an angle going across the screen right here. So I'll say add, and I'll go into number 2 and number 5, and I think I might actually do this word all in capital letters. So we've got our first letter, V, and I'm going to make it small, and I'm going to type it all in capital letters. And there you go. And now I'm going to show you what I'm going to use the array button on this screen. And this time, whenever we press this button that puts things on an angle, it always makes the word go upwards. It would be nice if the Brother software engineers could give us a second button that allows us, instead of making the letters go up, that actually make it go down. But watch, we have these buttons for when we're on an array. Watch what happens with the buttons when we choose this. Now we can either make the words continue going up, or we can actually make them go down. So I'm going to choose this button here, and it's going to slowly take the words and make them go this direction. And in this video, I'm actually going to speed it up so you can see how it looks. Okay, that took quite a few seconds to do that, and if we had just had the reverse of this button, it would have gone very quickly. So once we're happy with the angle, we'll say OK, and we will set. And there is the word in our actual heart. So now we can move it aside, and there we go. You can see our word Valentine is actually on top of our sweetheart. And so for this, what I think I would like to do, because I will show you, because we use small and we're at this angle, we actually can't move these letters any closer together. And you can figure that out by just touching. You can hear that sound. It's not going to let us change how close the letters are together. But let's go back into Edit, and let's see if we put it on a little bit different angle on the array, if we can get it to work a little bit better. There you go. So what I did is I took the angle off just a bit, and what it did is it moved it off of Sweetheart, so the machine itself was able to make that adjustment, but we were not able to make the adjustment. And I'm going to just move it up a little bit so that we have room. The next thing I would like to do is add an XO here, but before I do that, I want to actually change the color of the letters of Valentine. So we'll say OK, and we'll go into Edit, and here is our thread color, and I think I'm going to make it the pink color. We'll say OK, and now let's go ahead and add, and we're going to go into number 2, and we'll choose number 1, and we'll choose an X, and I think I'm going to choose medium, and we will set, and there is our XO. I'm going to move it off of that just a bit. Let's go ahead and rotate it. So we'll do Edit and Rotate. And the next thing I'm going to do is change the color. And for this one, I think I'm going to go with the plum color. Now, one option you have, remember, is we can make it pink, plum, pink, plum. But for this, I think I'm going to leave it as one color. I'm going to change the spacing. So I'll say OK, and spacing, make them closer together. Okay, so that one is set. We'll say OK. And the next thing I'd like to do is add maybe another array up here with the word love. So we'll say Add. And I'm going to go into number 2. I'm going to choose number 8. Lowercase l, make it small. And this one you do want to be careful. You saw how small it was on top of Valentine. There's always the chance that you'll see that we have the red boxes around here, but you can easily transfer the boxes to the word Valentine, but it's not a big deal. You just put it back where it goes and then re-choose the word love. So let's now that love is chosen, let me zoom in for you. And we'll go into Edit and go into our array. This time I want to use this really big array, and it puts it on a much greater curve than what we were working with before. And Once we're happy with it, we'll move it up where we would like to have it. And we'll say OK. And let's go back in and change the color. And for this one, I think I'm going to make it the pink color. We'll say OK. So next thing I'm going to do is I want to add a smaller version of XO right here. So we'll go into Add. As you can see, I messed that up. So here we go. We'll drag that up. We'll put this back where it goes. And there's our XO. So we'll go into Edit, and we're going to rotate it. And that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. So we'll say OK. And we're going to go in and change the color to a plum. And I'm going to add another word or two right in this area. And you can see our word happy is a little larger than what I would like to do. So I'm going to go into Edit, and I'm going to go into Size, and there's our large, medium, and small. And I'm going to make the word small. So we'll say OK. And now I'm going to rotate it. And the final word I'm going to do is I'm going to add a word right here. So I'm going to say Add. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Return. And with this I'm going to go back and give a capital letter. Now let me zoom in so you can see. You can see that B is centered on top of mine. The other key that we have to work with is this button down here that looks like some sort of Chinese symbol, but what it is a justification button. Right now it's in the middle, and when I press it once, it moves it so it's a right justified. If I do it again, it moves it so it left justifies. So let's go ahead and set and see what happens. And there are our words. And I'm going to rotate it just a bit. And let's change the color. That changed it for B. And there we go. We were using our arrows to find the other part of this box. And I'm going to also change the lower portion to a deep pink. And I'm pretty happy with how that design looks, so we're ready to stitch out. Once you're happy with everything, we will press Embroidery. And before we start stitching, just in case the power goes out or something else, it's good to go ahead and place it into memory and put it in the pocket, and that way we can always recall it. Okay, we've got our fabric all hooped up. We've got our Wet and Gone Tacky Pressure Sensitive Stabilizer hooped up. Let me show you that label again. This is what the label looks like. It is by Floriani. It's pressure sensitive and water soluble, which means it's got a tacky surface to it. I've got a piece on the bottom, I've got my towel, and then I have a piece of the stabilizer on top. Before we start stitching, there are two things I'd like to do. Now remember, we're only using 3 colors in this design. So the first thing I would like to do is touch the 3 spools right here. And what this does is it combines, instead of starting and stopping and changing thread a bunch of different times, it will sort our threads into the grouping of colors. So we're going to touch this button, and what it does is it illuminates behind it to let us know it's combined our colors. I'm also going to touch this button and put a basting stitch around the design. Now, you don't have to do this when you're doing sticky stabilizer, but for this particular project, I really would like to have a basting stitch around it. So let's go ahead and now look at our threads, and you can see up here it has actually sorted our threads. Now you only have this up here if you've done the latest upgrade. That's one of the features that we have to let us know how far into the design we are and what colors are coming up. So over here in the viewing window, you can see it's going to stitch the basting stitch first, and then it's going to do the heart. So let's get started.